To do a 10-minute podcast, 10 minutes or less, you would think that you don't have enough time. Well, the thing about it is we just try to cover one takeaway, one main item in every one of these 10-minute podcasts. That's the nature of them. And we want you to be able to come to one podcast and get something out of it. We hope that you can listen to all of them. We make 3 available a week. But if you just listen to one, we hope you can get something out of it. And the reason I say that, we're doing a 3-part series. Well, Thom, what if I only have time to listen to one of them? That's fine. Better than listening to none of them. But the 3-part series is on the 3 biggest keys to becoming an evangelistic church. And we're at key number 3, the consistency factor. The previous podcasts, number 70 and 71, talked about the pastor as champion, and I talked about a prayerful jumpstart. So if you want to go hear the other 3 big keys, the other 2 big keys, I should say, this is number 3, then go to the previous podcast. And, you don't even have to listen to it 10 minutes. Put me on 1.5 speed. I talk with my Southern accent. I talk slowly enough anyway. So just speed me up and I'll probably be done in 7 minutes for you. We are grateful to Belay. Belay has been our sponsor from the onset, still is our sponsor. And our friends at Belay are productivity experts. Hey, they can help you church leaders accomplish so much more. They provide remote staffing, have an array of staff opportunities. I've told you several times on this podcast, we've used them at Church Answers from the onset, and we are still using them today. They're offering a new download, giving you a new eBook called The Power of Productivity. So what we want to encourage you to do is to text Thom, Thom, at 55123. Just text Thom at 55123. So hit in those numbers and then just put Thom in there and you'll have your download available. Okay, back to the 3 biggest keys. The 3 biggest keys to becoming an evangelistic church, as I indicated, number 1, I'm not going to get into all the details, is the pastor is champion. As indicated in number 2, it is if you haven't been doing evangelism for a while in your church, ease into it with a prayerful jump start. And we talked about the Hope Initiative, and you can go back and listen to that in episode number 71. And this is the 3rd factor, the consistency factor. When we made this research discovery at Church Answers, it was one of those aha moments. What is it in churches that are significantly evangelistic that they are doing compared to the control group, the comparison group, that weren't doing? And one thing stood out. Churches that were evangelistic, that were reaching people for Christ, consistently did something throughout the year evangelistically. Let me say that again. They consistently did something evangelistically throughout the year. They had some kind of emphasis, or they had some type of ministry in the community to reach people with the gospel. They did it at least once a quarter, but the most effective ones did it once a month. And it's not something that would have taken up a lot of time. It would have been something that would have indicated and communicated to the church that evangelism is important. Let me just give you an example. These are examples. If you go back to the previous episode, I talked about the Hope Initiative. We'll put the link in the show notes again. The Hope Initiative is very simple. Every participant gets a book. They read for one day 3 or 4 pages. They pray according to the prayer guide that is there, and then they take a challenge. And that challenge may be just pray for your pastor to be evangelistic. It might be pray for your heart to be able to see people in your community who don't know Christ. Or it may be just take a quick walk in your neighborhood and pray for the families as you walk by the homes. It's very, very simple. And we found that that's one way to jumpstart evangelism. In fact, that was the essence that we talked about in episode number 71, which was part 2 of the 3 keys of becoming an evangelistic church. So just the whole idea here is that's 1 month right there. And you could do the Hope Initiative 3, 4, and 5 months out of the year, and your church would be transformed. Or you can do Invite Your One, which is an opportunity to invite people who are not followers of Christ, who are not in church, to your church. That resource has always been one of our greatest resources. And you could do that 1 or 2 times a year. And if you do Invite Your One, and you do, say, 5 times of the Hope Initiative, that's 7 times to Invite your one, then 5, Hope Initiative. And it's not killing your church. It's low intensity, low expectation in terms of the quantity of work that has to be done. Of course, the quality of the work of the Holy Spirit being done is not measurable. It is just high. So here is my point. There are 3 things in evangelistic churches that you can emulate today. In episode number 70, we talked about the pastor as a champion. I could go back and talk about what that means and how a pastor can be a champion. And I wanted to be very clear as I said that I am not in any way whatsoever suggesting that the pastor do it all. But the pastor is at the forefront of this. Secondly, we talked about this easing into evangelism if your church has not been doing that much. And we called it the prayerful jumpstart. Hope Initiative is one way you can do it. Of course, it's not the only way. A program is not the only way, but it's a good way to do it. And so we talked about that. And so if you have a pastor who is a champion, if you're easing into it with a prayerful jumpstart, and then you start consistently throughout the year having some type of evangelistic focus or emphasis 4 times a year, 5 times a year, maybe get really excited and do it 7 or 8 times a year, maybe even monthly. Your church, we can't presume upon the will of a sovereign God, but your church, I believe, will become an evangelistic church. There's a dearth of evangelism in churches across America today. More than half of the churches in America today do not reach one person for Christ. If we just begin having a few of our churches start reaching a few people with the gospel, well, we'll start seeing a major turnaround that may one day be defined as a spiritual awakening if enough people follow God's obedience in this. Once again, be reminded, Jesus called his first disciples to follow me, and I will make you fishers of people. That's how he began his earthly ministry. Jesus concluded his earthly ministry with Acts 1:8. Right before he ascended into heaven, he said, you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, and Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. Evangelism were at the bookends of all that Jesus did, telling people the good news about himself and now commanding us to tell the good news about Jesus is what he advocated in his earthly ministry and is for us today. As he left the church, and the first church at Jerusalem was about to be started, and it did at the end of Acts 1, going into Acts 2, the early church was about to be started. He reminded them again and again that they are to be witnesses. Get evangelism going in your church. Go let some of the people in your church hear this 3-part series on the 3 biggest keys to becoming an evangelistic church. I think beyond a shadow of a doubt that if God just uses you to do the few things that we're advocating in these 3 podcasts, you will see your church become an evangelistic church for the glory of God and for the good of the kingdom. And it will be a great thing that God will do. As always, if you ever get a chance, thank Belay. They foot the bill. They're the reason we can do these podcasts at no cost to you. This is the reason that you are able to have this information. Belay are productivity experts. They can get you people through remote staffing and a number of different positions. And I'll, once again, just text Thom, Thom, and 55123, and then put Thom in there. And just get this download. It's a cool download called The Power of Productivity. Again, I hope you'll take this 3-part series and you'll make it available for others in your church. It'll only take a few minutes, but my goodness, if churches begin to do these 3 things, what a great thing a great God will do. As always, thank you for being a part of the Church Answers podcast. Join us every week as we have 3 brief bite-sized nuggets to share with you, and we'll see you in the next episode. Hey, folks, this is a PS to our podcast. We got some exciting stuff that we want to offer you absolutely for free. Sam, when you think about predictive factors in a church's growth, if you take out demographics, what are some things that come to mind? Just 2. I mean, don't give me a list of 10. Just 2 or 3 things that come to mind on predictive growth of a church.
Well, evangelism and whether the church is doing it or not.
Bingo.
And then I will add, is it an ongoing evangelism emphasis?
Double bingo.
Well.
and maybe something about leadership and their commitment to that. So all of the above.
Evangelistic churches have evangelistic pastors. Is the staff, is the lead pastor doing the work themselves?
We have a free download for you, and it's actually a sheet that you can self-score. You answer 20 questions, anywhere from strongly disagree to strongly agree, and we come back and we predict what your growth rate is going to be for the next year in worship attendance. It's not a perfect tool, but it's a good tool. There's a link to that for the attendance predictor. Look in the show notes. You'll absolutely love it. That's cool. We'll see you soon.